Did you ever load the abortion one on YouTube?
Yeah, believe so. I usually just push the button right after we're done for that part. Alright. Make sure we're actually live. And we are live. Let's share the thing. Ooh, it even updated properly. No, I don't want to tweet it as Greek Grills. Damn it.
Okay.
Facebook. I just pushed the wrong button. I'm so discombobulated. And I have a sniffle. Damn it. This microphone, for being way over there and on the camera, is super sensitive. And I'm not going to have any way to mute myself. Yay. Well, I can, but it'll be too hard. Alright, posted to Facebook. Shut off my phone alerts. Manage your channel directly from your phone. They put Dashboard live on the phone. Alright, that makes me excited. Alright. I guess we are ready.
All right.
I was about to stop. Start. If we had confidence after a thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. Based on the facts and the applicable legal standards, we are unable to reach that judgment. This is from the Mueller report. Let's talk about the news.
Podcast reclaiming the faith in political context, in
Stop.
political discussion. Okay.
Start the intro again. I'll cut that out.
You're breaking up really badly. Is it me?
Yeah, so are you. All I heard was reclaim faith is where you started talking.
Maybe it's on my end because I'm on a Wi-Fi at this point versus...
That would be what would cause that,
My computer has been hard plugged in for a while into the router, so it may be me. Give me a second. I'm going to clear everything and just hope I remember all the articles I read.
That, once that stuff is loaded, unless it's running automatic videos and stuff, isn't what's eating your bandwidth. But
it may be.
Streaming with Wi-Fi is really iffy.
Okay, let me do this. Output video to push to talk. No, that's working. All right. I'm trying to. Do we want to go without me having video? Would that help?
That would help.
Okay.
Video takes up a lot of bandwidth.
All right. Escape. Let me see how I get out of the video.
I can shut your video off. Oop. Nope, that didn't do it.
Let's do this. All right. Turned off the camera. Is that okay?
Okay.
Now
see how this goes.
Yeah, give me like 2 minutes. Give me a talk for. Give me a couple of sentences.
I'm not sure what you want me to say. I've got lots of bandwidth, so.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I heard you. All
Does
right,
it sound better to you?
It sounds 1,000 times better. Yeah, it was the video.
Yeah.
All right, let's try this.
Why don't we completely start again, just so I don't have to screw with editing all that out?
Yeah, we'll start from the beginning.
Okay. Excuse me. If we had confidence after thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. Based on the facts and the applicable. Hold on, I'm going to start again. I slurred a
Okay.
couple things. Three, two. If we had confidence after a thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. Based on the facts and the applicable legal standards, we are unable to reach that judgment. Mueller Report. Let's talk news.
Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast to reclaim faith in the political discussion context. Wow. I am. We're doing great. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me at Seth Roth II, and you can follow the show at YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and any podcast catcher. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Please like, share, subscribe, and also give us a review. That helps others find us. Also, as always, helping me today is Ember of the House 9 of 12, first of her name, the just queen of podcast streams and YouTubes, Calicia podcast, defender, protector of the geeks, breaker of the patriarchy, and mother of her children.
Hello there, I am indeed September, and you can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12. That's NINEOF12. And you can hear me on the Geek Rails podcast and on Trust Your Cape. Heresy and Hearsay has a Patreon site, folks. Please, please, you can really help us out with just $2 a month to keep making this humble show at patreon.com/Heresy and Hearsay.
So let's talk about what just broke yesterday, and that is Alabama. So basically, Georgia, as I've seen tweeted by several people, Georgia has passed a heartbeat law, which is within the first, with a in vitro, not in vitro, but
In utero?
with in utero ultrasound, you can hear the heartbeat. So, I mean, great, and that's about 6 weeks. And
Yeah.
most women don't even know they're pregnant within the first 6 weeks of being pregnant.
I don't know if
So,
most, but yeah, great number. I mean, you're barely even laid at that point, depending on when you conceived.
correct. So, Alabama basically said, here, hold our beer, and decided just to flatly outlaw abortion in their state without having any with, only provision is for health of the mother, no provision for rape or incest, and if a doctor is found giving an abortion illegal, they can face up to 99 years in jail. And the woman can also be put in jail for that same for a long time period, which would make her a felon. Which, as someone on Twitter pointed out, most states, including Alabama, doesn't allow felons to vote. So you see where that leads.
Well, actually, I read through some legal opinions as well as bits of this legislation, and that's not. There is nothing prosecutable toward actual women in either of these bills, or in existing state laws for obtaining an abortion. The only prosecutable things will be against doctors. Just so you know, despite the clickbait headlines out there.
Okay, well, that's good. That's a plus. It's still
The also other clarification I want to make is because there's a lot, and I mean, my husband brought this to me the other day, and I looked it up. I was like, okay, no. People are saying that a woman could be prosecuted for having an abortion if she had a miscarriage and go to jail. Also, no, you can't go to jail for having a miscarriage. The dangerous part of this law if they are prosecuting the doctor for performing an abortion. And that's if these laws even pass, by the way. That's not what they're even trying to do. But we can get into that, and how the politics work there. Um, but it would be that they would drag women into court, like who had just had miscarriages, and they could be trying to make them prove, no, this doctor didn't give me an abortion, I had a miscarriage, and how they try to prove how they lost their baby in that circumstance, which is horrifying and wrong, and no woman should have to go through that.
No, I had a friend of mine who she's had a couple of miscarriages, and it is so traumatic for her to even discuss it that she doesn't bring it up. She just makes sure she stays on a really strong birth control because she doesn't even want to face that chance again. So, because of how painful it was for her. So to imagine to be drug into a courtroom and have to, say, yeah, I had it, and go through that trauma again, it's just it's horrifying to think of that.
Yeah.
And I don't completely I can't I don't understand it at all. I don't get it. Why someone I, I guess it's another way of trying to control a woman so that and it comes back to I think it comes back to it's not about abortion, it's not about saving children's lives. Because they talked about on the Alabama bill there was two things, the rape and incest thing was defeated 22-11 on that amendment. But there was another amendment that was set up that it was to help pay if these children are forced, if these women are forced to carry to term, that they would provide health care and stuff, free health care and stuff for the child and mother, and financial help for the mother and stuff up to age 3, and that was defeated 26-6 or something like that. So it's not about the child, it's not about giving birth, it's about controlling women. And I know I'm mansplaining and I apologize, but some men need to have this explained to them. And unfortunately, it's a case of where men will sometimes listen to a man more than they'll listen to a woman about this situation. I think that's why men are stepping up. There was a tweet that I would love Ember to read as soon as if she has it pulled up. But
Yeah, I was like, I have too much crossover. And I want to apologize, folks out there, about my audio. My mic broke just before the show started, so I'm having to use the mic on my cam. But here's where I get crossover in my little nerd world, because I only came across this tweet. I hadn't seen the show notes and that Barney had put it there yet, because I am a geek grill, and in our Twitter it's like, hey, Chris Evans was tweeting. For those of you that don't know, Chris Evans has been playing Captain America until recently in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And he posted about, if you're not worried about Roe v. Wade, you're not paying attention. This is why voting matters. Now, it was in reference to another tweet that has since been removed. So I don't know what that was. I missed that. But it's been really nice to see the thread of people appreciating, his support and his awareness on this issue.
and I am a wrestling
And saying
fan.
Captain America for president.
I am a wrestling fan, and there's a wrestler who is also fairly well known in the video game world. His real name is Xavier. His character name or his wrestler's name is Xavier Woods, and has a PhD, and he's also a very popular wrestler, part of the New Day tag team. And he sent out a tweet basically saying, if I have something dealing with my body and I want to go and take that care, take that, have that taken care of. I have the right to do so. Why should anyone not have that right?
Okay, and that's something I wanted to talk about, clarify about those amendments in particular in Alabama. A lot of you all probably saw the kerfuffle on the news because their state senate devolved into yelling and screaming. Because the Democrats were trying to add the amendment for protecting the life of the mother or rape and incest, that kind of thing. It was the rape and incest one in particular, I think. And the person running the meeting, and I've seen this happen in political context. I have been in meetings, and sometimes, like, when you're on that side of the argument, you're, like, really excited about that person being a strong leader, but the Democrats in this case were pushing for at least a vote on paper so that the Republicans voting, or anyone voting for this bill, would be on paper held accountable. There would be a record vote. Mm-hmm. What they were doing was they were having a voice vote, which would allow for, people to be wishy-washy about whether or not they had voted yes or no on the bill. So Democrats are pushing for a voice vote, and you can push through using Robert's Rules of Order to, like, ayes, nays, gavel through it, move so fast, nobody gets a word in. And the Democrats got really upset about procedural elements and trying to get the amendment at least, or the full bill tabled until amendments could get looked at, and that kind of thing. I won't bore you with all the procedure, but somebody did step in and step up and say, hey, let's sit on it, and they have delayed the vote to give people time to talk to their constituents, kind of letting the person running the meeting off the hook a little for just trying to ram it down everyone's throats. But there's more to this adding amendments that the Democrats are doing than is apparent. It's grandstanding on their part, honestly. It's trying to prevent it from even being heard by the Supreme Court, which tactically is sound. We don't want Roe v. Wade overturned, but the guy, what's his name? Is it Cooper? Who introduced the bill, and the extreme language they used, not putting in any of those exceptions, not putting in, using language like in the other bill in Kentucky, I think it was, in utero. They're being very specific. All of these bills are designed to overturn Roe v. Wade. They are not. They're under the guise of being able to pass some kind of changes in the abortion law within your state. However, those laws already are respected in state. They just can't go past a certain point because of Roe v. Wade. Mm-hmm. Part of Roe v. Wade already got overturned in 92, I want to say. It was a Planned Parenthood case versus Casey, if I'm correct. But anyway, they've been picking away at it, and they started that in 92 when they realized they could get things like the references to specific trimesters removed from Roe v. Wade. That removes protection. Roe v. Wade is so important because it is federal, because it was determined at that time that the right to privacy in our 5th and 14th Amendments actually applies to women. Imagine that. So that's what it has to do. And the right to privacy extends to abortion into physical care, health care for women. That's what Roe v. Wade says. It says it is a woman's constitutional right to privately talk to her doctor and manage her own health care. People trying to overturn it, if the Democrats get something in there that refers to rape and incest, that's adding another element to it, and the Supreme Court, if it was escalated, would say, we're not looking at that, it doesn't refer to this constitutional thing. And they will just throw it away, which has been happening for years and years. The Supreme Court has just been refusing to hear anything that would overturn Roe v. Wade, but it's always because we've managed to get those things tacked on there, which makes the case in reference to something else. I hope that clarifies for some people what's going on and what the motivations are behind adding this stuff. It's not like a purely, we just want to protect that part of women's lives or that part of the law. There is a legal reason that they
Right.
procedurally got to keep it where it is and keep it from being heard by the Supreme Court.
And the other thing is that with Roe v. Wade, is what you said. It made it federal, because before that it was a hodgepodge of laws of where some places it was legal, some places it wasn't, and it was and it's kind of like our marijuana laws. It's a completely extreme example, but it's like it's some places it's legal, some places it's not, and if you bring it, and all of this stuff.
Well, the point is, it still is.
Right.
Because in any law referring to abortion in any state, as long as it has that other language in it, they are getting around a lot of the original intent. That's why they have to omit any of those languages to push it to a federal level. Like this Cooper guy, he doesn't really believe you shouldn't be able to get an abortion in cases of rape and incest. He just knows that if we add that language, he'll never be able to overturn Roe v. Wade, which
Right.
is a far more insidious thing because then women don't have privacy in anything. I know in our abortion, I don't know, maybe it was last year, another episode, we talked about the whole law they were trying to pass in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that you have to submit to basically have a dildo shoved up you to hear a heartbeat before you're allowed to have an abortion. And that kind of thing can pass. But this is why it's important that people understand it's about a woman's right to privacy as much as it is about abortion at all.
And I and here's the thing. Looking at it, I've never had a girlfriend have a scare, quote unquote. I've never had to deal with this in my personal life whatsoever, as far as that's concerned. However, to to basically, I it just feels like, and if I'm wrong on this feeling, tell me, but it feels like these men, and if you look at the pictures of the people that are passing these laws or making these decisions, it's men, and it's white men making these decisions. And but it feels like they want to go back to where women couldn't vote, or women didn't have any of their own um, basic control over their lives, because they were always pregnant. It's like what we brought up in our abortion talk a couple of weeks ago about birth control, and why that was such a huge battle back in the day, because these women were basically pregnant every year as long as they were viable, and they were dying at early ages, and they weren't able to feed their children. That's not everybody, don't but as far as the masses are concerned. And then you've got this influx of poor children going to schools, and then you're not going to fund the schools on top of that. I hate to say it, but it sounds like a cross between the Bible, just people just wanting to control women's bodies so that they don't have any autonomy of their own lives, and Brave New World. You know,
Handmaid's Tale. And one of the
I
best replies I liked on Chris Evans' tweet was somebody said, "Yo, Cap, you dealt with time travel. Any chance you can help get Alabama out of the 1800s?"
I'm like, I mean, seriously, it's like I don't understand this at all. How, and maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I would. I'd like to take this opportunity to give a shout out to another podcast that I recently discovered. It's called Ben Franklin's World.
Mm-hmm.
It's hosted by this really dynamic woman, and she talks about early American history. Episode 237 in particular is about motherhood in early America,
Right.
and it definitely talks about a lot of the points you made. Pardon me.
Uh, Bless you.
Anyway, they talk with Nora Doyle, who's an assistant professor of history at Salem College in North Carolina. So it's really interesting talk about experiences of mothers and motherhood between the 1750s and the 1850s. So it might be a really good episode for you to listen to and to our listeners to follow up and imagine what it was like for women then, and do we really want to go back there?
I mean, here's the thing.
And we
A lot.
can't. We can't. They had social structures where you had women to help you, right?
Right. Midwives,
That we
stuff
don't
like
even
that.
necessarily have.
Well, I mean, do we even want to go back to the 1950s? Yeah, a popular movie, at least for our generation, was a movie about dirt. It was called a movie called Dirty Dancing, and one of the subplots was about this girl who was getting an abortion. If anybody remembers that subplot, I do, because it actually talked about. I mean, this was a silly romance dance movie, but it had some depth to it as well. There was a reason why things happened the way they happened, but it was basically they had to come up with the money. So some doctor that turned out to be a quack, who was just taking the money and doing it, shitty, came in to give an abortion because this girl got pregnant by the owner of the resort. And so it was, there was that subplot. We do, and they talk about back alley abortions and stuff. If you want to talk about protecting women and protecting women's lives and stuff, that is just as bad or worse, because now we're going back to unregulated, unregulated, jobs where people are having to go to people that may or may not have a medical license, may or may not be safe, may or not be in the best situations, and they're providing this that women will still want. Making it illegal doesn't mean it's going to stop abortions. By far, all it's going to do is cause more women's deaths.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and here's a big danger right now. All right, I was going to talk about procedure earlier. It's going to be into 2020 before any of these things, if they pass, if they don't get held up in court, which is what has been happening to these bills for decades, get by. However, the headlines we're seeing: abortion criminalized, women's going to go to jail for 99 years, all the inaccurate, at the very least, things are keeping women from people are calling their healthcare providers and scared and canceling appointments and worried about how to hide or how to talk to anybody, because I've seen these posts online like, okay, if you think you might need an abortion, don't tell anybody you're pregnant, don't, just get out of the state and don't tell anybody, because then there'll be a paper trail and you could be prosecuted. Holy shit, your information is wrong to begin with, but you're part of the problem because you're scaring women into being quiet, into not getting help, into not getting information, when none of these laws are an actual law yet. So it's already doing damage.
Right. Now, let me ask you a question. I posted something about there is a call for a boycott of these states, not spending money there, not filming movies there, stuff like that.
Oh, we're
And
going to
then,
talk about the sex thing.
well,
Have you seen that?
the well, that's something I wanted to talk about too. But
Okay.
But the other thing is like, five production companies are, because a lot of films after North Carolina was a big especially for like places with woods and stuff like that. It was, or rural areas or things like that. So
Hmm.
it was a big, and then we passed the hateful trans law, the
Right.
bathroom law, and North Carolina lost a lot of money, and and they a lot of production companies pulled out. The first Hunger Games was filmed in North Carolina. The second, third, and I think fourth one was filmed in Georgia because it has a similar makeup as far as nobody wants to film in South Carolina, but it has a similar. It has mountains. It has it has all that kind of stuff. It also has coastlands and things like that. So it works out. But now that a lot of people are wanting to pull out of Georgia, and Stacey Abrams, for those who don't know who she is, she ran for governor of Georgia and was cheated out of the election thanks to the lieutenant, the attorney. He was the attorney general at the time. I think that is now the governor of Georgia. He was the attorney general at the time, basically making it, voter suppression completely and totally illegal, so that he could win the election as a governor. But she's saying, don't do that. Just give money to, charities or whatever to help out women who are trying to seek abortion. So my question is, and going into the geek stuff as well, Dragon Con is there, which is one of the bigger conventions. It does about 100,000 on a big year, about 80,000, about 60 to 80 on a small year. Um, should we be pulling out of these states? Should we stop spending our money in Florida, Ohio, Kentucky, all these different states?
I'm a big believer in voting with your dollar. I really am, even though people are constantly berating me for how it's stupid and doesn't make a difference. I think it can. Has
I
it hurt
mean,
North Carolina? That's the problem, though. It's almost like this tariff stuff, right? Who's it
mhm.
actually affecting? Like I know people in North Carolina who have suffered in the entertainment industry from losing jobs to it and then moving away. The people we've lost artistically because the jobs weren't here. So I mean, yeah, it'll hurt the whole state that way, but will it turn things around? I mean, I
Well,
don't have
and
the answer to that. It depends on how widespread you can make it. But I think it's a good thing for businesses to stand up, businesses and industries to go ahead and act, and it seems hypocritical, like a conscientious voice, right? I'm
mhm.
not going to put my money where I don't believe in what's going on. I want to support what's right. Like the Chobani guy just gave tons and tons of money to pay for those kids' back school lunches so they would stop shaming them.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
fantastic, right?
and I had heard that originally they were going to refuse his money. I had heard that, but well, and here's the thing: it did work. Now we haven't gotten the film industry back, but I think we may after all this happens, and if this goes through in Georgia. But the NBA, for example, was going to have their All Star weekend, and they canceled it.
Right.
And and there were several other big sport things that said no, and they canceled it. And that law was changed within a couple of years. You know, the state kind of
I
got
mean,
a
it
little
wasn't
more
completely reversed, but significant
right.
change, yeah.
Uh, it, the state was got a little more redder in some respects as far as like voting for president and stuff like that. But when it came, but the light at the end of the tunnel is the fact that the state voted in a Democratic governor because of these kind of laws and this kind of stupidity that's cost the state money. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so it does work. It does cause problems, and it does trickle down. I'll give you an example. One for me, there's two. I don't go. I love Chick-fil-A sandwiches and waffle fries. I have not been to a Chick-fil-A in years, and it, and don't get me wrong, my $10 isn't really affecting them because every time I drive by a Chick-fil-A, they're always busy, but sometimes it has to be about you too. It has to be you're doing what you are feeling is right.
See, there you go.
Because
it may or may not change things, but there are things I do, and I feel like I am making a moral stand, and that's the right thing.
Right.
Because I too haven't been to Chick-fil-A in like many, many years.
I found out that the tea, I'm very specific about the iced tea I make, and it's a very specific brand of tea, and it's Tetley, and it's made in Georgia. If this law goes into effect, well, actually, I'm not going to buy any Tetley tea for a while, which means I had to go to Louisiana tea, and I really don't like Louisiana tea that much, but it's better. But it's better than Lipton.
I think Louisiana is the only tea I could drink for years. I've been boycotting Coca-Cola since, about 35 years. I've been boycotting Coca-Cola, and I mean they're hardly hurting, right? But yeah, I have a real problem with them. And when I lived at Disney World, because it's all Coke products in a 50-mile radius, that was pretty much the only thing anywhere on property I could drink. Anyway, I say yes. Boycott. I mean, they're going to act like corporations are people. Yes, get right in line with us and boycott shit. Maybe we could enact some change with our dollars. Did I lose you? Barney. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Sorry, folks. I seem to have lost my co-host. Hello? You can't hear me. I don't know what to tell you about that. I can't hear you either. Interesting. I know I'm coming through because I can see it on my Streamlabs. I guess I should turn on audio over here. See what people that.
Oh, there we go. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
My headphones just decided to die. All right,
All right.
We are just this podcast has been.
Ooh.
All right, so
this is gonna be fun to edit.
I love you, September.
I'm trying. I don't even know how many minutes we're in, so I can look for that. That'll be. All right. So where are we? We gotta get moving on here. I don't want to. All right. Yes, go ahead. Support us. I gave a big spiel about money, and then.
Okay. Well, what I was saying is about the sex strike.
I'm not with that. You want to tell people what that's going on, and then I'll give my opinion.
So basically, Elisa Milano is saying our productive rights are being erased until women have legal control over our own bodies. We just cannot risk pregnancy. Join me by not having sex until we get body autonomy back. I'm calling for a sex strike. Pass it on.
And I'm super disappointed that like Bette Midler got jumped on board with this, right? Um, I think she couldn't have possibly thought it through.
Well, well, here's the thing. I don't think Bette Midler's in any danger of getting pregnant.
Well, it doesn't matter, but she's a feminist
Yeah,
icon in a lot of
yeah,
ways.
true.
And she jumped on board with like, I hope the women of Georgia support this like don't give men sex thing. So here's the problems I have with this. A, weaponizing sex, that whole withholding sex naggy shit that I think is horrible and toxic in relationships. So A, that's gross. B, it implies that women only like we don't get pleasure out of sex, right? Like we're it's just for men and it's something we're giving them, and that whole mindset, I am just not on board with that. So I don't think that's a boycott. Voting with your dollar is quite different than boycotting with like your body. I mean, yes, you could say it's our bodies on the line, but I'm not on board with this. And when I share
Well,
my body, I would enjoy my body. Like, I mean, I
well,
could. They're not outlawing birth control here yet, but oh no, no, you don't understand. Like, it's weaponizing sex, and I don't think that's a healthy part of the argument, a
and
healthy
I've
addition to the argument.
and I've seen some women come out and say, "Is like, do you really think that the men that are on board with this is going to give two whatevers if a woman is denying them sex? Because of this? Do you really, or do you think that this could be even more problematic and cause even more problems than what they're already having to face? It's a couple of situations. Like I said, it's for me. I'm looking at more. I see what you're saying, and I completely agree with it. My thing is that pragmatically, the men that would be, if okay, let's say all the progressive women did this to all their boyfriends or whatever. What is that accomplishing? Because if you're most of the women I know who are in that progressive camp and feminists and stuff like that, they're not dating men who agree with this bill to begin with.
I guess could be seen as a throwback to, I mean, men are the ones in power, and that's the influence we can use, and so why not? But I yeah, again, throwback. I don't, I don't like this idea. I think it's a clever way to make a point. I don't know that actionably it's worthy at all.
No, no,
I mean, I think that just making the point so that men think, oh, geez, well, maybe. But, yeah, no, the people that are in support of this aren't going to have their minds changed by not getting any. Because they're probably already not. But,
I was thinking the same thing, and you beat me to the joke.
yeah,
It's
but if
like,
they are, it's not going to make them all of a sudden think about their bodies the way they think about women's bodies,
no,
which is the problem here. The
and
barrier
and
that we keep running into. I had a friend of mine that I love and I know believes in women's equal rights post some shit the other day about how men should also have a 50-50 choice on whether an abortion happens.
and my question is, are you carrying it 50% of the time, motherfucker? Yeah, I'm just like, yeah,
You're not
no,
growing it in your body. Like, what it does to your body. I mean, no. Squirting in 50% of the genetic material is not the same responsibility bearing task.
Right.
And therefore, I don't think the decision should be. I mean, it's a moral and ethical question, right? I mean, morally,
Right.
yes, I would tell a potential father what's going on because they have the right to know. They should certainly never have the ability to find out if I didn't want to tell them, because there might be a reason for that. It might be your uncle or your father.
Right.
This is
Or
why
a
the
rape,
privacy thing is important.
or
This
a
is why the
rapist.
incest thing keeps coming up, or
Yeah.
one of the reasons. Um, a man should not be able to. This is a woman's body issue. We carry the kid.
And they're, going to the geek thing is like, talking about, the movie Guardian of the Galaxy, which, Jesus Christ, that was a rough watch. Not that it was a bad movie, but the whole father thing. But it's like the whole thing of where Star-Lord's father was, this evil planet trying to take over the universe. And I am going to mispronounce his name, but the head of the Ravengers being like, he may have been your father, but I was your daddy, kind of
Mm-hmm.
situation. It's one of those situations where, just because you are the genetic individual, the person who provides the genetic stuff, doesn't mean that you are you're a daddy, you know.
Well, yeah, and certainly you should never be able to go ahead and tell a woman like what she can do with her body just because you
Yeah,
put something in it.
yeah, no, no.
I just
uh
realized, by the way, can I get a giggle?
what's
And
that?
no one's mentioned it in the stream, even my viewers. It says that you're Linda under your.
I mentioned that last week when I was posting the video. It's like, by the way, I'm not Linda. I
I
didn't know.
didn't even catch that. I can
Yeah.
totally fix that. It's not even hard. Oh my god.
Like, I'm not. By the way, I am not Linda. I am Reverend Barney. So it's
There,
just
it's
like,
fixed. Jeez Louise.
we're just having a great stream today.
Technical difficulties. It's a
um.
thing. Can we?
So,
I have to go in probably no more than 10-15 minutes, so we should maybe move to some other topics. I knew we were
here
going to
on.
get hung up on this because it's like a big deal right now.
Yeah.
Even though we
Okay.
just talked about abortion, couple episodes, folks, go check it out.
Yeah. So, right. So basically, the Mueller report came out. We'll be posting a fact check. The fact check did one about what it says about obstruction of justice. We'll be posting that. But basically, it's, Barr came out and basically said, hey, there is no obstruction of justice. And the Mueller report specifically says, through all the redacted papers, because there was so many of them, basically says, we can't say that. We just can't say there wasn't either, because by law we're not allowed to say it was. You know,
Yeah. And
so
there's moral dilemma stuff here too. People that talk about leave it alone, you're wasting time, you want to impeach him, but why is the right wing that claims they are part of the religious right ignoring the moral and ethical conundrums that come up in the report just because they're not prosecuting? Because they can't find enough legally to prosecute or don't want to.
well, it's a very narrow. It's also the thing that people don't understand is that you can't prosecute a sitting president. It's law, but also on top of that, and that's what impeachment is for. Then you can prosecute them. The other thing is that is that the Mueller report and Mueller's specific investigation was a very narrow investigation. So he could, by its statute, he wasn't able to expand that. Not saying that he hasn't turned in that stuff to other people so they can expand on it, and they have been, but that there is this narrow lane that he had to stay in. So that's why he can't really go after him for, say, obstructing justice on something else, when he is mainly focused on the looking at collusion, working with the Russians uh, to win the presidency. That
Yeah.
was what. Now, don't get me wrong. He also posted, and this was mentioned in the Mueller report as well, that there were several chances for Trump to try to do obstruction of justice. It's just that his staffers told him to go fuck off, and I'm not doing that. It was, basically what it was is they refused those orders, refused to carry out those orders of to fire Mueller or whatever the case may be, because they knew it was wrong. So, and I would love to, and I need to sit back and look at this a little and see if there were similar things going on with the Nixon administration. I know there were some where, people were resigning because Nixon was trying to make them do things that they wouldn't want to do. So but I don't know if they
Oh, there are
out now.
definite parallels. People like him trying to not let people recuse themselves. People, yeah, being asked to document things. Like, you're obviously trying to cover your ass, and you're asking people to write this internal memo that says this, will you? Like, I don't know if that's true. Why is he asking me to write that down? Yeah.
So, yeah, so let's touch on a couple of other things about Trump. First off, as you know, Trump is refusing to release his taxes, and they've been subpoenaed, and that subpoena will probably be refused as well. And this is just leading up to a real hard legal battle of what because tax records are the presidential tax records, once you become president, are supposed to be legal, at least to Congress, so that they can make sure that you're not, trying to make deals with some other country and fucking us over. There are laws for that, so there's a fight going on with that right now. There's also that Trump wants to start a war with Iran again, and that we're dealing with these tariffs that are not helping us and hurting, America. So which one do you want to tackle real quick before we go on to the primary news?
Hmm. Um, it's tempting to go back to the abortion thing because that asshole stood up saying that, like, women have babies and then decide if they can live or not out loud. So women, please stop voting for this lunatic that wants to take away your right to privacy. But the tariffs is a big deal that people don't understand very well.
So do you want to explain tariffs real quick?
Okay, tariffs, what people understand, what we learn in school, right, is you place basically an extra tax on a product, and that makes it more expensive so that you can, like, if you got really, really cheap stuff coming in from other countries and you want to promote people buying things that are manufactured in your country, you slap a tariff on the other one, and it's supposed to equalize the playing field, is the simple explanation. However, that's not how it actually functions, and things are much more complicated in worldwide trade right now. And so Trump loves this tariffs idea. I think he has the understanding of a fifth grader in it. And it's hurting our economy, it's hurting our workers, it's hurting our businesses. Because what happens is that our businesses, it's not going to improve our manufacturing base here. That is going to take a lot of different types of work and law changes in our countries and tax reform to happen. And we actually have been building some manufacturing jobs in this country, bringing them back here since 2008, but it has to do with having fair trade with other countries and having better, stronger labor laws without overtaxing and bringing all boats rise, right? Like the fair trade would people would say. So these tariffs are making it so that people who are importing raw goods for manufacturing here are having to spend more for them. Our companies are paying the tariffs. Let me repeat. Our American companies are paying tariffs to import these Chinese goods because of the goods that have been taxed coming from China. So it's hurting and it's driving a lot of American manufacturers out of business. American companies trying to install solar panels, for instance, where the raw products are and parts are coming from China. We don't make them here. This isn't a simple tariff that's going to make us more competitive and all of a sudden people want to build things here. That's not what's happening. It's a trade war. It's driving our markets down out of fear for people that invest in things like raw materials.
Mm.
So we'll see. It's not going really well. He wants to have this kind of war, and it's not going well for us or China.
Right. So yeah. So the tariff things is a big deal. Iran. It depends on if he can actually pull it off. A lot of people, a lot of his supporters around the country, around the world, are pulling out because they don't want to do this. Because it would be long, costly, and would make the Iraq war look like a cakewalk. And on top of that, there has been so many documentaries that have been done and snuck out of people from Iran who want to be our friends, not the government or whatever, but just there are so many people that want to be our friends, and we're wanting to start a war with them and to do another geeky thing. Basically, we're going to be Daenerys on a dragon, blowing up an entire country of people that may actually like us. So that's not good, because the best way to cause people to hate us is to burn them alive or to blow up their shit. I'm just,
That's what we do in the Middle East. That's what we do. What's what every Republican administration does in the Middle East.
I,
It's, how many times have you heard the right saying, "Just turn it to glass"? Right?
yeah.
That's not disgusting. Um, I wept when we bombed Baghdad. I cried. The news stations were showing it here with music playing in the background, and all I could think is of all those beautiful
Yeah.
people dying and all that history. And I just, yeah, Rob had to shut the TV off because I was weeping.
So, right. So let's talk about something a little lighter. Uh, let's talk about the Democratic um, primary.
Holy crap. Dude, there's like 20 of them. We don't have time for that.
I'm going to touch on. I want to touch on two, because
Okay.
all right. First off, I like Elizabeth Warren. She is currently my front runner in my heart. She has her own problems, but she, AOC is not old enough to run for president yet. So I'm going with Elizabeth Warren right now because she is talking about a lot of the things that AOC and a lot of other people are talking about, and she's not problematic like Bernie and his followers. Bento is a centrist. So, and the others, I don't, Pamela Harris, and I don't know who
About
else
Mayor
running.
Pete. I kind of like
I
Mayor Pete.
just, it's so, but I think Elizabeth Warren, as far as her ideas, we need to really pay attention to her. I'm just afraid it's going to end up like Hillary, where men can't handle a woman being in charge.
Oh, yeah.
But I like Elizabeth Warren is my pick right now. However, Joe Biden has entered the race, and I love Uncle Joe. Don't get me wrong; I am a fan of Uncle Joe, especially when he was with Obama. But he said a couple of days ago, "Is like once the what once the once the Republican Party exercises themselves of Trump, that they will come back to the table. And I want to say, weren't you a vice president for 8 years? Were you asleep during that time frame? Did you completely and totally miss the point? Or is it because it was Obama that they wouldn't come to the table either, but because you're a white man, they'll come to a table? I'm not saying Joe's racist. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that there is a little bit of that kind of thing going on too. That's my feeling. My feeling is that Joe should shut up and get out of the race, because Anita Hill basically said, "Yeah, I really don't forgive him. Still, when he came and talked to me, it wasn't good enough." So he's problematic with women.
There's nothing going to be good enough. There's nothing going to be good enough. I'm sorry, and I've watched the testimonies, and it sucks. And he was actually very compassionate, and he had a shitty job to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about him having to take blame for handling things certain ways. It sucks that he had to do that. He got put in a really bad position, and his apologies have taken too long, but they've happened over and over and over and over from like the time that happened till now. And it's still not good enough. And I'm not willing to write him off and all the good work he's done and the good man he is over that. I mean, he's a stand-up guy and a humble... I don't know. His whole life story has always been very compelling to me.
So let me ask this question. If you were, right now, what do you think about a Biden-Warren ticket?
Because okay. I might just see Biden Cortez though. Like, she's young, but she is so on it, and she is so in touch, and that might be the gate we need to get women in there. I think Warren's gonna suffer the same way that Nancy Pelosi does. Honestly, they're gonna take a couple of things and just discount her. I don't think she's the kind of woman women get behind. Just like you said, just like Hillary. I hate seeing it. It drives me nuts. The things people said about Hillary during that race. I just don't think Warren's personality. It is politics of personality to an extent.
I know.
Right? People they vote for who they like, no matter their policies, and Warren I don't know. Warren might be the only woman who can get Bernie bots to come over. So there's that to consider as well. I'd have to look at some actual data, because I'm that kind of political nerd. I'd have to pull a lot of statistics to answer your question properly.
Well, here's my thing. I like Warren. I like her policies. I like what she's saying. She's also very... why I said Hillary in a lot of respect is because she's a policy wonk, so that never translates well, because it's not soundbitey, but certain things aren't soundbitey.
Yeah, and it makes me nuts. That's the same thing with people demonizing Pelosi. She knows her shit and gets things done. Yeah. Just like Warren, just like Hillary always had. And they're all just taken as, oh, they're so cold.
That's because it's policy, and policy isn't... We're not reading you a bloody bedtime story.
But women aren't supposed to be cold, even though we're also, not supposed to be, oh my God, we can't have a woman because they'll be hysterical. Literally.
Right. Well,
we can't win.
Well, I mean, look at the most popular show going on right now about Game of Thrones. Oh, she went all hysterical. It's like, I don't even want to get into that. That still just makes me angry. But no, and a white man's got to save her from her heresy. But anyways, that's not. All right, we can't go to Game of Thrones because
I don't just. She's been this from the beginning. Y'all are ridiculous.
I understand it, that there was that going on.
But now you're taking my feminist icon and turning her into a bad guy. Oh my God. Y'all should have never had her on a pedestal to begin with. I have a Pac figure of Daenerys that Rob gave me years ago, and I was like, Why? I'm really not
Let's not.
buying. Anyway.
Yeah, we need to end the podcast.
I'm considering ritually burning it, but anyway.
We can talk about that another time. So, but
Hey,
my
politics is Game of Thrones.
I know,
That's
I know.
what it was about from the beginning, about how power corrupts. So this is not that out of line with what we're talking about.
uh, that being said, but it's one of those situations where, yeah, a woman in politics is damned if you do. I mean, because they decry AOC. And the reason I call her AOC, by the way, is because I am horrible at pronunciations and I would rather not mess it up. And she doesn't mind going by AOC in
Yep.
certain things. So, I don't want to mess up her
That's
name.
why we
And
can say Mayor Pete, because we're not just being familiar. He knows his last name is hard.
So I perfectly okay with, and she's perfectly okay with it. But someone brought up that whole, when George W. Bush, when W was running for president, there was this survey and now it's a popular question, but there was a survey that came out, who would you like to have a beer with?
Yeah.
And here's my thing. How about none of them? Because I don't give a fuck about what they are as far as a drinking buddy. What I want is someone who is fucking smarter than I am, who knows what they're doing in that office. That's what I want. That's what I need.
Yeah, but see, to be fair, I would totally love to have a beer with Obama because he also is in the comic books and he's intelligent. I would like to have a conversation with him.
Well, no, and don't get me wrong. I would like to sit down and have a nice beer or whatever with Elizabeth Warren or whatever. But that is not, to go and hang out and watch a game or whatever. It's that whole go to a bar, hang out, watch a game, drink a beer. I don't need that in my president. What I need is someone who knows what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah, somebody who's smarter than most of the world, right? That would be good.
Yeah, that's how, if you look at the Republican Party since Nixon, if you look at their presidential candidates that have won, they've slowly been done, except for I will give this, except for George Herbert Walker Bush. If you look at them, they've been dumbing down ever slowly to where we've gotten. At this point, someone mentioned the fact that The Rock was thinking about running for president. It's like, first off, he's not going to take that cut and pay, and second of all, at least he's intelligent and charming. Yeah, he may be a Republican, but at least he's intelligent and charming. And but at that point, then if The Rock wins,
let's not. If we're gonna go there, it may as well be Terry Crews, because then we can just do the literal idiocracy push.
But that's what I'm saying. It's basically, at that point, we've become idiocracy. And Mike Judge said years ago, is like, when I wrote this movie, I was supposed to be a satire. I didn't know I was a Nostradamus.
Yeah.
It's like, so September has to go and get one of her children from school, and so let's end this. Next week it's our 20th podcast. We may just kind of sit and chat for a bit and do something simple so that we're not having to stress over all of this. I think In the News is going to have to be a monthly feature so we can stay on, especially as the political current starts to move toward election season. So let's end this by saying thank you for joining us here at Heresy and Hearsay. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at Seth Roth II. You can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, podcast, as well as our website. Just Google us. Don't forget we have a Patreon where $2 will help us keep this going.
And I am September, also known as 9 of 12. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter, and hear me on the Geek Grills and Trust Your Cape podcast. Thanks for listening today, and bless your hearts.